Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome back to Wisdom and Torah and this week's Torah portion, where we are going to be opening up the book of Numbers and covering the portion Bamidbar, which is chapter 1 all the way through chapter 4, verses 20. So we're not actually finishing the fourth chapter, but it's quite a large portion. But this week we're going to have a unique opportunity to focus on a specific area, mainly due to a popular teaching, so to speak, or movement that is prevalent right now that is causing a lot of confusion pertaining to the Levites. And when these type of things come up in Scripture, that allows us an opportunity to bring clarification to the body. So that's what I'm hoping that we're going to do today. And we're going to see that there's a lot of legality just within these 4 chapters, and there is a particular theme. And as we saw a couple of weeks ago, the last Torah portion I did, is we found out that there is a specific reason for why all of these chapters are broken up the way that they are, especially when we talked about the case of the blasphemer, and realizing that the book of Leviticus was structured in a specific literary format to go in line with the literal structure of the tabernacle. Well, I'm coming to find out that this Torah portion is just as important, in its literary setting. And what I mean by that is that when you open up this particular portion, it opens up with the census, right? And it kind of just goes through all of the descendants of all the tribes, because they're taking a census, because what Moshe is doing is setting up the structure of the camps around the tabernacle so they know which order they're supposed to go in when it's time to move, and so on and so forth. Well, once you get through the first chapter, you're going to see right at the end where it makes a specific mention about the Levites not being counted. And we have a lot of reading that we have to do today, so that's kind of why we're jumping right into it. And we got a lot of things that I want to share with you to try to bring clarification to understanding the 2 essential orders of the priesthood. So what are the 2 essential orders? You have the Melchizedek priesthood, which is the order in the macro temple of Yah in the heavenly realm, and then you have the Aaronic / Levitical priesthood, which is the order of priesthood in the earthly temple. Okay, so they have 2 distinctive roles and 2 distinct statuses to each one of those. So both of those work hand in hand, step for step, and you can't do away with one to justify the other. And this seems to be what's going on right now. Is there's a popular movement, like I said, where everybody seems to think, or is trying to promote the idea that we've all become Melchizedek priests since Yeshua has come, and that's not the case, ladies and gentlemen. We do not realize what we are saying and what we are doing, and the information that we are twisting when we formulate these doctrines. So hopefully today that we're going to use this as an opportunity to bring clarification to that. Okay, but back to chapter 1, like I said, once you get through the opening census, as you notice that beginning in verse 47 of chapter 1, it says that the families of the tribe of Levi, however, were not counted along with the others. Yah had said to Moshe, "You must not count the tribe of Levi or include them in the census of the other Israelites. Instead, appoint the Levites to be in charge of the tabernacle of the testimony." So here we see that, and we're going to go through all the other verses that we see in Exodus and the rest of the book of Numbers, and then Ezekiel, and then we're going to clarify with Hebrews chapter 7 and 8 at the end of this. But we see that he's already telling Moshe that don't count the Levites. They are the ones that are to be in charge of the tabernacle and its service, over all of its furnishings and everything belonging to it. They are to carry the tabernacle and all of its furnishings, to take care of it. So they jump down to verse 53. The Levites, however, are to set up their tents around the tabernacle of the testimony, so that the wrath will not fall on the Israelite community. The Levites are to be responsible for the care of the tabernacle of the testimony. The Israelites did just as all they commanded. So then you move immediately into chapter 2, where it's talking about the arrangements of the rest of the tribes around the tabernacle. So if you picture the tabernacle, the structure of it, and most of you probably should have pictures in whatever version of the Bible that you're using, because they'll give you diagrams to show that you have the tabernacle structure, then you have the camps of the Levites are directly outside the courtyard of the tabernacle, right? And then chapter 2 is talking about which side of the tabernacle, outside the realm of the Israelites, that the rest of the camps are supposed to set up their camp. Okay, so you get through those first 30 verses, and you get down to verse 32, where it says, "These are the Israelites, accounted according to their families, all those in the camps, by their divisions, number 603,550. The Levites, however, were not counted along with the other Israelites as Yah commanded. So the Israelites did everything that Yah had commanded Moshe. That is the way they encamped under their standards, and that is the way they set out, each with his clan and his family. So here we're beginning to piece together that there is a theme here. Okay, so they've set out all this stuff pertaining to the other tribes, but in the midst of, or at the end of both of these chapters, in 1 and 2, it mentions the Levites. Okay, and then immediately into chapters 3 and 4, we start getting into specific details pertaining to the Levites being the grant given to Aaron and his sons to keep the service of the tabernacle forever. Okay, forever. Okay, so there's a prominent theme going on with the Levites in the book of Numbers. Okay, and this is going to be our focus because I want you guys to remember how we've talked about roles and status in an honor and shame culture, and we're going to talk about this. And I've got several resources that we got to share throughout the hour that we're going to go through this. And the first one, which will be up in the post, is called Law and Family in the book of Numbers. The Levites and the Tedenitu documents from Newsy, and it's by Ada Tagar Cohen. So this is it's a very long article, and we're not going to spend a lot of time in this, but it's going to be there for you guys to read. It's another excellent resource that is going to be confirming a lot of the stuff that we're going to be discussing in this hour. But the one quote that I do want to read to you from this is basically one of his opening statements, where it says that the book of Numbers deals with the duties and rights of the Levites and the priest in chapters 3, chapters 4, chapters 8, chapters 16, chapters 17, chapters 18, and chapters 25. Okay, so we have in all of these chapters, it's specifically dealing with the duties and the tasks of the Levites maintaining the service of the priesthood in the earthly realm. Remember, right now we are only talking about the essential order in the earthly tabernacle. We're not talking about the Melchizedek order just yet. We will get to that. But he goes on to say, in these passages, a new arrangement regarding the cult is introduced. The Levites are assigned to the sanctuary, an act which has an implication for the priesthood. The priests who were consecrated in Exodus 28, chapters 28 and 29, which we're going to get to that in a second, and again in Leviticus 8, are still challenged by other families of the tribe of Levi, and therefore in contrast to Exodus and Leviticus. Numbers is concerned primarily, now check this out, with the status and the inheritance of the priests, and not with their performance. So we can see that the book of Numbers is establishing the role of the Levites and the status in which has been ascribed to them by Yah, by the Creator. Okay, now back to this prevalent movement and popular teaching going around about how we're all Melchizedek priesthood. The belief of in the whole core of their argument, okay, is that the Levitical priesthood was not granted to the Levites until after the golden calf incident. Well, what we're going to quickly see in Scripture in the book of Exodus is that Aaron and his sons were given the priesthood in chapters 28 of Exodus. Okay, well, when was the golden calf incident? It wasn't until chapters 33, ladies and gentlemen. So we see that they had already been given the priesthood. It was ascribed to Aaron and his sons. Okay, we know that Aaron and his sons is considered the Aaronic priesthood. The Levites were granted to them, as we were seeing in the book of Numbers, to be a grant to them to help them do the service. It wasn't to be the firstborn like we are being, I don't even know what to call it anymore. But we're going to see that this really is not the case, okay? And I am of the belief that when Yah sent Moshe to speak to Pharaoh in the beginning of Exodus, as he says, I believe it's in chapters 3, where he says that I am sending you to Pharaoh. I have made you a god in the eyes of Pharaoh, and I am making Aaron, your brother, as a prophet. So he's already ascribed the specific role to Aaron when they go to see Pharaoh. So there is a distinct possibility that Yah could have already given him the priesthood at that time, because he's already been given a higher role and a higher status because of that position of being a prophet to Pharaoh at the time that they went back and forth to Pharaoh before they left Egypt. Okay, so it's all about understanding what the Levites' role is and who has ascribed that role to them. And it's Yah, our Creator, the great King. Okay, so now let's get into talking real briefly about roles and status. And I've talked about this several times over the last few months, specifically, in the Torah portions of late, and also in the Gospel of John teaching. Basically, the role is this. The concept of role borrowed from the stage involves behavior and a socially recognized position of a person entailing rights and duties. A role implies a set of expectations for interaction between a person who holds one position in a group and another person who holds a reciprocal position. In other words, there can be no role of leader without a follower. No mother without a child. As several anthropologists define it, role is a set of expected behavioral patterns. So what does this say? It's basically saying that every one of us has specific roles that have been ascribed to us, whether we're a father, a husband, a mother, a wife, a teacher, any of those things. And the role is defined, the status to that role is defined by the value system that is attached to it by the society. Well, when you go through and you recognize all the roles that the Father has ascribed to each individual in Scripture, is He is the one who has deemed what is a value, or what is an honorable value system that is attached to each role. Okay, so this is why we see that later on there becomes all sorts of issues with the Levites when they are not maintaining the honorable status in which Yah granted to that role. So what happens? As they get removed, okay, and then the role becomes diminished. So this is an act of shame. So when there is no temple, there is no priesthood, and so on and so forth. This actually shows that this is a state of shame. Okay, so it's all about understanding what the role is and who defines that role and who defines the status. Okay, so we see that this is what's going on in the book of Numbers, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to see in chapters 3, we're going to read all of chapter 3 here in a minute. And we're going to see that there are two witnesses that Yah gives in this chapter that describe their role, their status, and that if anybody else tries to come against that role and that status, then it means death. It's legally binding, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge. So status. Whereas persons play certain roles, they occupy or have status. Status differs from role, and that status is a recognized position that a person occupies within society. So as we see all the status that is being attached to the role of being a priest or being a Levite, that is to do the service within the temple, it's interesting that in this Torah portion, once we get through chapter 3, is it starts to break up the clans of Aaron's descendants that are to serve as the Levites per clan or per family. This particular Torah portion ends with the Kohathites, who, if you remember, Korah, who has this open rebellion later on in chapter 16, was a son of the Kohathites. He was a descendant of the Kohathites. So what was his rebellion about? Is he challenged Aaron's authority to be the high priest. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, when we have people going around right now that are teaching predominantly to the people of the covenant that they are all Melchizedek priesthoods and that all the Levitical priesthood is done away with, they are committing ma'al, willful, open rebellion, because they're trying to say that the role that Yah ascribed to the Levites forever is no longer valid. What they are not understanding or recognizing is that the Melchizedek priesthood is distinct from the Levitical priesthood. We are talking about two different orders of the priesthood pertaining to two different temples. Okay, it literally is that simple, ladies and gentlemen. You have a Melchizedek order that deals with the heavenly realm, which is why the scripture says that Yeshua comes in the line in the order of the Melchizedek high priest. And then you have the Levitical priesthood that deals mainly only with the earthly tabernacle. Okay, it's two different things. Completely two different ideas, but they are interwoven together, because one is dealing with one specific area of maintaining a temple purity state, and the other is dealing with another one. Okay, so when it's talking about a recognized position, all of Israel had already recognized that Yah had ascribed this honorable status in this role to Aaron and his descendants, and then to the Levites. Okay. So now you can see that this is dealing mainly with the whole theme of the Levites throughout the book of Numbers is establishing their status within the community, their honorable status. Excuse me. So, back to when was it that Aaron actually received the priesthood? Okay, if you go back to Exodus chapters 28 verse 1, it says, "And you bring near Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, for serving as priests to me. Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron." So that's at the beginning of chapters 28. Remember, this is prior to the golden calf incident, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and we're going to talk about the firstborn here in a second. Okay, because this is where things start to get really confusing. Well, if you go all the way to the end of chapters 28, it says in verse 43, "And they shall be on Aaron and on his sons." Now this is talking about all the garments, because all the rest of chapters 28 is talking about the garments that the priesthood wears, right? So at the end it says, "And they shall be on Aaron and on his sons when they come into the tent of meeting, or when they come near the altar to attend the holy place, so that they do not bear crookedness and die, a law forever to him and to his seed after him." So here we see that he's already saying that the garments of the high priesthood to Aaron and his sons are to be on them, and this is a law forever, and to his seed after them. Despite Yeshua coming, despite the temple being destroyed in the first century, despite any of those things, remember, Yah does not change, okay, ladies and gentlemen. When we read about it in Ezekiel 44, and what's going to happen in the earthly temple during the millennial reign is that there's going to be a priesthood. It's going to be a Levitical priesthood working side by side with the sons of Zadok, okay? It's not that difficult to understand. And Scripture never says that once Yeshua came that we are all Melchizedek priests. You and I do not have that authority. So I don't want to get too far into the Melchizedek thing just yet until we get to Hebrews. So we have to recognize is that Aaron and his sons have already been given the priesthood of the earthly temple to officiate as high priest and in the holy place in Exodus chapter 28. So there's this reverse chronological stuff with this teaching pertaining to Melchizedek and when the Levites got this, and it was only because of this, and blah blah blah. It's not that case. Okay. Oh, the other thing that we have to make mention of is, ladies and gentlemen, Moshe, Aaron, and his sons are all Levites, and as far as I know, they're going to continue to be Levites. So that's one indicator right there. So now this allows us to move into talking about a royal grant. Okay, remember what a royal grant is, and I'm going to give you some quotes here in a second. And we're going to read from Weinfeld's article. But basically what a grant is a gift from the king for doing a service to him. Okay, so we're going to see that the priesthood was literally given to them as a grant, was given to Pinchas and his descendants, which were Levites. They were descendants of Aaron forever. It was a grant because of what happened in Numbers chapters 25, and we're going to read that in a second. So it's basically a grant that he gives them. It could be a piece of land, it could be the priesthood, it could be the kingship like he gave to David and his throne, and he gives it to him forever for an act of service, of loyal service, in which they had done unto the king. And the kicker is with the grant, ladies and gentlemen, is that no one can take that grant away. If they do, it's an act of treason and affront to the king, which opens up the door for that king to bring all of his wrath and all of his army and literally destroy anybody who tries to take away the grant that he has given to his faithful servant, right? So Weinfeld, the covenant of grant in the Old Testament in the ancient Near East. The author shows that the covenants with Abraham and with David are modeled on a royal grant. And I also am going to attach the priesthood to this, and he talks about it, and we're going to read about it. Modeled on the royal grant, so common in the ancient Near East. Gift of land and dynasty, the subjects of the Abrahamic and Davidic covenants are most prominent in the suzerain vassal relationship. Like the royal grant in the ancient Near East, so the covenants with Abraham and David and the priesthood are gifts bestowed upon individuals who excelled in serving loyalty to their masters. The terminology used in this context is very close to that used in the grants. Especially characteristic are, he kept my charge, walked before me in truth, and his heart was whole to his master, walked in perfection. Okay, so now Weinfeld goes on to say on page 201 of this article, and I think this can already be found on the Wisdom and Torah site because we've talked about the royal grant several times using this specific article. But I want to share with you what he says about the grant of the priesthood and the priestly revenues. And on page 201 he says that the documents of grant in the ancient Near East also includes grants of status. Remember, we're still talking about the status, the value system that Yah says that's honorable to the Levites in the book of Numbers. Okay, and you're going to see that the rest of all these portions in this book are going to just keep enhancing our understanding to their loyal status, their honorable status. Okay, and anybody that challenges that role that they play or that status, ladies and gentlemen, it's open rebellion. We do not understand what we are saying when we are trying to teach and formulate these type of doctrines. Okay, and I normally do not do this type of thing, but this area is so important and extremely dangerous that when we try to say that this is done away with, or this is done away with, this people are done away with, this is going back to church mentality, which we all say that we came out of. Okay, this is replacement theology, ladies and gentlemen. We are formulating our own doctrines and saying that what the Word says is not what it really meant to say. So the documents of grant in the ancient Near East also include grants of status, priesthood, etc. The priesthood of Aaron in Israel had also been conceived as an eternal grant. Thus we read in Numbers 25, verses 12 through 13, Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the Israelites by displaying among them his passion for me. So here we see that Pinchas kept the status, he kept the honorable value system attached to the role of priesthood by walking in perfection according to that status. By his heart was whole to his master. By he kept the charge of what Yah had said was deemed honorable to that role. So say, therefore, I grant him my pact of friendship, or it actually says in Scripture, I grant him my covenant of shalom. It shall be for him and his descendants after him a pact of priesthood forever. As in other grants, so also here the grant is given for showing one's zeal and devotion for his master. And like the other grants, so also the gift of priesthood is given in perpetuity. In other biblical texts which do not follow the rigid distinction of the priestly code between priests and Levites, but rather adopt the Deuteronomic attitude of priests and Levites as one group, the grant applies to the whole tribe of Levi. So we see that the tribe of Levi is given to Aaron and his sons as a grant to help them officiate. Okay, now I want to make mention of one other point here, is that, ladies and gentlemen, as you'll see when we are talking about the redeeming of the firstborn, okay, the redeeming of the firstborn it goes step for step for what happened in the 10th plague where Yah destroyed the firstborn of Egypt. Okay, remember? That was the 10th plague. Now I'm coming to find out, and I still need to verify this, but I'm coming to find some information that is talking about in the Book of Dead, it talks about specific firstborn sacrifices that the Egyptians used to do. Okay, this is an act of this is just horrific to think about, okay? And we know that we serve an Elohim of justice and righteousness, okay? So when we're talking about the redemption of the firstborn and all these things that are tied into that in the priesthood is, to me, if the firstborn Israelites were all meant to be a priesthood, this literally would be a nightmare when it came to distributing the inheritance. Okay, because remember that your inheritance goes through the lineage of your tribe. It goes to the firstborn, then it gets divided up amongst the rest of the children of the family. So if all of the firstborn, if all of the Israelites were meant to be a priesthood, this would literally be a complete nightmare in trying to figure out how each individual will get an inheritance. Because remember, the Levites didn't get an inheritance. They were allotted all of these other things and all these other areas in which Yah sustained them for the service in which they were doing in the tabernacle / temple. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, I do believe that there was specific things attached to the firstborn and the redemption of the firstborn. But we have to recognize that the priesthood was given to Aaron and his sons prior to the golden calf incident. This did not change after the golden calf. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so there's no way that you and I, if we understand the two essential orders to the macro temple and to the micro temple, that you and I, we literally cannot play the role of a Melchizedek priest on the earth, because there is no order on the earth for the Melchizedek priesthood. It's dealing with the heavenly realm and the heavenly tabernacle. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this. Somebody please go through all your books in the Bible and show me where the book of Melchizedek is. Oh, there isn't? Why is that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's because the Melchizedek order is dealing with a different temple. It's dealing with a macro temple in the heavenly realm. But there is a book of Leviticus, which is dealing with everything pertaining to the service in the earthly temple, right? Well, if we were all Melchizedek priests, then there would have to be some sort of book in here or instructions to teach us how to be Melchizedek priests, right? Ladies and gentlemen, you're dealing with specific areas of impurity in an earthly realm. Melchizedek priest, the priesthood in the heavenly realm doesn't need any instruction, okay? It's not there. They already know what they're supposed to do and how they officiate. This is why Yeshua is officiating on our behalf in the line of the Melchizedek order, because that's the only order in which it could officiate is in the heavenly realm. I hope this is making sense. There's way too much confusion going around right now pertaining to this topic. And I think that this is extremely important for us to understand. And I'm asking you guys to study the information for yourself. And one other question that always seems to come up, and I've had people ask me this, well, whenever there is a covenant between people, there was always a sacrifice, right? Well, and the argument is, well, there was no sacrifice when the priesthood was given to the Levites. Hello, if you look at the opening of the altar and consecrating the altar, consecrating the priesthood, and doing all these things as soon as the tabernacle is done, those are all sacrifices, ladies and gentlemen. They seal that covenant. Okay, you could not just start the priesthood without consecrating everything that's supposed to be done. So these arguments hold no water whatsoever. Okay, so we see that this is what's happening in chapters 25, and I want to read those verses really quickly because we've got to go through the verses. We're not reinventing this stuff. We're trying to give you context, so we can understand what is truth and what is not. So Numbers 25 verse 1, and Israel dwelt in Shittim and began to whore with the daughters of Moab, and they invited the people to the slaughterings of their mighty ones, and the people ate and bowed down to their mighty ones. Thus Israel was joined to Baal Peor, and the displeasure of Yah burned against Israel. And Yah said to Moshe, take all the leaders of the people and hang them up before Yah, before the sun, so that the burning displeasure of Yah turns away from Israel. And Moshe said to the judges of Israel, each one of you slay his men who were joined to Baal Peor. And see, one of the children of Israel came and brought to his brothers a Midianite woman before the eyes of Moshe and before the eyes of all the congregation and the children of Israel who were weeping at the door of the tent of meeting. And when Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a spear in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through. And the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. Thus the plague among the children of Israel came to a stop. And those who died in the plague were 24,000. And Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the children of Israel, because he was ardent with my ardor in their midst, so that he did not consume, and that ardor should be my honor, in their midst, so that did not consume the children of Israel in my ardor. Therefore, see, I am giving him my covenant of peace, my covenant of shalom. And it shall be to him and to his seed after him a covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was ardent for his Elohim and made atonement for the children of Israel. So if he says that he's giving it to him an everlasting priesthood, does that mean as soon as Yeshua comes that priesthood stops? No, it doesn't. Does that mean that as soon as he destroys the temple for them being disobedient and not maintaining the honor to the status of the priesthood, that we all become Melchizedek priests? No, it doesn't. Ladies and gentlemen, the temple's coming back again, okay? We need to be careful what we are speaking. So we see that this is a grant that's given to them, and that no one can take it away. And if we try to take it away, or we say that it's done away with, then we are committing ma'al, we are committing willful trespass against the king. And then we wonder why we have issues. So now I want to get into chapters 3 and actually read through the verses to show you that there are two witnesses that are establishing this matter of the priests of the Levites, of the Aaron and his descendants, having the priesthood forever. Okay, so we're going to go through the verses now to show that this is a legality to this. Verse 1, chapter 3, this is the account of the family of Aaron and Moshe. At the time Yah talked with Moshe on Mount Sinai. So now we're getting, see, we went through all these clans of setting them, their position around the tabernacle, counting them for each one of those clans in chapter 1. And now we're directly moving right into the status and the role of the Levites in the rest of these chapters. The names of the son of Aaron were Nadab, the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Those were the names of Aaron's sons, the anointed priest. The anointed priest, ladies and gentlemen, they've already been consecrated for the office, who were ordained to serve as Kohanim. Nadab and Abihu fell dead before Yah when they had made an offering with unauthorized fire before him in the desert of Sinai. They had no sons, so only Eleazar and Ithamar served as Kohanim during the lifetime of their father Aaron. Yah said to Moshe, bring the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron, the Kohen, to assist him. They are to perform duties for him and for the whole community at the tent of meeting by doing the work of the tabernacle. They are to take care of all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, fulfilling the obligations, and by doing the work of the tabernacle. Giving the Levites to Aaron and his sons, they are Israelites who are to be given wholly to him. So this is a legal, they basically, I think the words here lead to, they basically adopted the Levites into the priesthood as a grant forever. Now check out verse 10, because this is our first witness. Remember, 2 to 3 witnesses establish a matter, right? This is what we all proclaim all the time, the 2 to 3 witnesses. Well, here you're having 2 in this chapter that's saying that the Levites and the priesthood have been given to them forever. Verse 10, appoint Aaron and his sons to serve as Kohanim. Anyone else who approaches the sanctuary must be put to death. This is where Korah's rebellion comes in chapter 16, ladies and gentlemen, because he's going to rise up and get his clan and his peeps to rise up to basically say that Aaron doesn't deserve to have that position. I'm going to take it. And we all know what happens to them. Then Yah said to Moshe in verse 11, verse 12, I have taken the Levites from among the Israelites in place of the first male offspring of every Israelite woman. The Levites are mine. Now we're going to talk about this verse here in a second. Okay? So we're going to get to that in the next slide, because I want to talk about where it's talking about in place of. Some of your versions talk about instead of the firstborn. Okay? And we're going to try to bring some sort of clarification to that. So for all the firstborn, so here we go, check this out. I have taken the Levites from among the Israelites, and it says, in place of the first male offspring of every Israelite woman. The Levites are mine, for all the firstborn are mine. So it's not distinctly saying that the firstborn are no longer his, ladies and gentlemen, to make like as if the Levites are replacing them altogether. Remember, the firstborn was still to be redeemed throughout all their generations. Throughout all their generations, he says that they are there. They are his. So the Levites are mine, for all the firstborn are mine. When I struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, I set apart for myself every firstborn in Israel, whether man or animal. They are to be mine. I am Yah. And now I'm just not seeing this. He says that I set apart for myself every firstborn in Israel. He's not just talking about the males. It says I've set apart every firstborn, whether man or animal. So let me ask you this. Are all the animals, were they meant to be Melchizedek priests? See how ridiculous this sounds? Ladies and gentlemen, I am leaning more and more that the firstborn plays a special role attached to what happened to that 10th plague. But I'm really believing that they were never meant to be an official priesthood, so to speak, as the Levites were. Because the priesthood was given to the Levites, Aaron and his sons, forever in chapters 28. And we can see here that he's already saying that the firstborn are still his. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think that it should be saying that the Levites from among Israel in place of. I think it should say in addition to, or in favor with, or along those lines. So Yah said to Moshe, Oh wait, let's finish that verse. They are to be mine, I am Yah. Verse 14. Yah said to Moshe in the desert of Sinai, count the Levites by their families and clans, count every male a month old or more. So Moshe counted them as he was commanded by the word of Yah. These were the names of the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. These were the names of the Gershonite clans. Libni and Shimi, the Kohathite clans, Amram, Ishar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The Merarite clans, Mali and Mushi. These were the Levite clans according to their families. Verse 21, to Gershon belonged the clans of the Libnites and the Shimeites. These were the Gershonite clans. The number of all the males a month old or more were counted as 7,500. The Gershonite clans were to camp on the west behind the tabernacle. The leader of the families of the Gershonites was Eliasaph, son of Lael. At the tent of the meeting, the Gershonites were responsible for the care of the tabernacle and the tent, its coverings, the curtain at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the curtains of the courtyard, the curtain of the entrance of the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle and the altar, and ropes, and everything related to their use. Now see, what I'm seeing now is, as we're reading their position around the tabernacle, ladies and gentlemen, is it's setting up a buffer zone, so to speak, so that none of these other clans try to come in and take over and do these type of things. There's a reason why all these camps are placed in this specific order. Okay? To Kohath belonged the clans of the Amorites, the Isharites, the Hebronites, and the Uzzielites. These were the Kohathite clans. The number of all the males a month old or more was 8,600. The Kohathites were responsible for the care of the sanctuary. The Kohathite clans were to camp on the south side of the tabernacle. The leader of the families of the Kohathite clans were Elizaphan, son of Uzziel. They were responsible for the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the articles of the sanctuary used in ministering the curtain and everything related to their use. The chief leader of the Levites was Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest. He was appointed over those who were responsible for the care of the sanctuary. Now we get to Merari. Belonged the clans of the Malites and the Mushites, these were the Merari clans. The number of all the males a month old or more were counted as 6,200. The leader of the families of the Merari clans was Yisra'eel, son of Abihail. They were to camp on the north side of the tabernacle. The Merarites were appointed to take care of the frames of the tabernacle, its crossbars, its posts, its bases, all its equipment, and everything related to their use, as well as the posts of surrounding courtyard with their bases, tent pegs, and ropes. Moshe and Aaron and his sons were to camp to the east of the tabernacle, toward the sunrise, in front of the tent of meeting. They were responsible for the care of the sanctuary on behalf of the Israelites. Here's our second witness. Anyone else who approached the sanctuary was to be put to death. Two witnesses establish a matter that these are the people that are supposed to officiate and service the tabernacle, no one else. Okay, and then it goes on in the rest of the chapter to go on talking about the counting and the redemption of the money for the firstborn. Oh, let's go ahead and check that out. Verse 44, Yah said to Moshe, take the Levites in place of all the firstborn and the livestock of the Levites, and the livestock of the Levites in place of their livestock. The Levites are to be mine, I am Yah. To redeem the 273 firstborn Israelites who exceed the number of Levites. Collect 5 shekels for each according to the sanctuary shekel, which weigh 20 gerahs. Give the money for the redemption of the additional Israelites to Aaron and his sons. So Moshe collected the redemption money from those who exceeded the number redeemed by the Levites. From the firstborn of the Israelites he collected silver weighing 1,365 shekalim, according to the sanctuary shekel. Moshe gave the redemption money to Aaron and his sons, and he was commanded by the word of Yah. Okay, so in Numbers verses 3 and 12, where it talks about instead of or in place of, and this is also in verse 13, the word that is used there is tachath, which is the Strong's H84 verse 78. Okay, and literally if you look at the definition of this word, ladies and gentlemen, it could mean so many different things. And if we recognize that the priesthood was a grant, it was given to Aaron and his sons, and then the Levites were part of that grant given to them as a priesthood forever, then there has to be something that we are missing with the translation to try, when these people were trying to justify that they're saying, well, they only got this in place of the firstborn. Well, if it was in place of the firstborn, then it was in place of the firstborn of man and animal, correct? So that's discredited to me. So the definition says for takath, if you look it up in the Strong's, and I don't, I am not a big fan of Strong's or Brown Drivers Briggs, but they give you a general basic definition of terms. But you have to go back into the text, into the culture, to actually figure out what these words mean. So it says that it could be translated as the bottom, as depressed, only, adverbial, I don't even know what that word is, below, about underneath, which a lot of these, if you do a search for this word, just do a Google search in eSword or Logos for H8478, and you'll see that like half the time this word is translated as under, or it's translated as for. Where is it? Beneath, flat. Also for the sake of, which I think could be a better translation. So it could be for the sake of the firstborn redeemed of all the Israelites. Unto was mine, or whereas, for, or with. It even says it could be translated as with. And I tried to find where it was possibly translated with the word with, to show that in verse 12, if we were to read it, and I, behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel with all the firstborn, that opens the matrix among the children of Israel, therefore the Levites shall be mine. But I wasn't able to find anything that was translated as with. But it just opens up the possibility, ladies and gentlemen, that it's not necessarily meant to say that the Levites became a priesthood because of the firstborn did this. It never mentions that the firstborn of the Israelites were meant to be a specific priesthood, and it was taken away from them because of the golden calf. The text does not say that. It doesn't support it. Okay, so let's go to Numbers chapter 8. And I want to read these verses and try to back up this. The setting apart of the Levites in chapters 8, verse 5. Yah said to Moshe, take the Levites from among the other Israelites and make them ceremonial clean. To purify them, do this. Sprinkle the water of the cleansing on them. Then have them shave their whole bodies and wash their clothes and purify themselves. Have them take a young bull with its grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil. Then you are to take a second young bull for a sin offering. Here's our offering, giving the ramification or the ratification of them being in the priesthood. Mix a grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil. Then you are to take a second young bull for a sin offering. Bring the Levites to the front of the tent of meeting and assemble the whole Israelite community. You are to bring the Levites before Yahweh, and the Israelites are to lay their hands on them. Aaron is to present the Levites before Yah as a wave offering from the Israelites, so that they may be ready to work for Yah. After the Levites lay their hands on the heads of the bulls, use the one for a sin offering to Yah and the other for a burnt offering to make atonement for the Levites. Have the Levites stand in front of Aaron and his sons, and then present them as a wave offering to Yahweh. In this way you are to set the Levites apart from the other Israelites. So it's not saying that they're replacing the Israelites. It's saying that you are setting them apart to do a specific role that has a specific status attached to that role. The Levites have been given a role, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't say that the Israelites don't have a role. Okay, we have to see the distinction between these terms. And the Levites will be mine. Does that mean that the Israelites are no longer his? No. Does that mean that the firstborn Israelites are no longer his, or the firstborn of every womb, including the animals, are no longer his? No. It's saying that it's just a distinct role that he has granted to the Levites. He has granted to Aaron and his sons. After you have purified the Levites and presented them as a wave offering, they are to come to do their work in the tent of meeting. They are the Israelites who are check this out. They are the Israelites who are to be given wholly to me. So it's saying that those Levites are Israelites. Hello. I have taken them as my own in place of the firstborn, the first male offspring from every Israelite woman. Every firstborn male is in Israel, whether man or animal, is mine. There it is again. It's grouping the two things together. This is why I'm having difficulty with the translation saying instead of or in place of, because he's not saying that the Israelites' firstborns are no longer his. He's not saying that the rest of the Israelite clans are no longer his. He's just setting a distinct role from the Levites to do the priesthood. Okay, and I have taken the Levites of all the Israelites. I have given the Levites as gifts, as grants. I have given the Levites to Aaron and his sons to do the work at the tent of meeting on behalf of the Israelites and to make atonement for them, so that no plague will strike the Israelites when they go near the sanctuary. After that, I'm jumping down to verse 22. After that, the Levites came to do their work at the tent of meeting under the supervision of Aaron and his sons. They did with the Levites just as Yah commanded Moshe. Thus said Yah to Moshe, this applies to the Levites. Men 25 years old or more shall come take part in the work of the tent of meeting, but at the age of 50 they must retire, and it goes on there. Now, let's go to Numbers 18. Okay? Numbers 18 is actually, ladies and gentlemen, the legal deed to this royal grant. Okay? This is where people get hung up. Numbers 8, chapters 18, verses 1. Yah said to Moshe, you and your sons and your father's family are to bear the responsibility for offenses against the sanctuary. They are to bear the responsibility. And you and your sons alone are to bear the responsibility for the offenses against the priesthood. Bring your fellow Levites from your ancestral tribe to join you and assist you when you and your sons minister before the tent of the testimony. They are to be responsible to you and are to perform all the duties of the tent. But they must not go near the furnishings of the sanctuary or the altar, or both they and you will die. They are to join you and be responsible for the care of the tent of meeting, all the work of the tent, and no one else may come near where you are. Ladies and gentlemen, you and I cannot act as priests. We cannot just think we could just do willy-nilly anything we want. If there was a temple standing, ladies and gentlemen, and Yeshua was sitting in that temple, you and I could not just walk up and officiate and think we're Melchizedek priests because he's here. That's not what the text says. Remember, the earthly temple is a distinct order. The earthly temple is dealing specifically with non-willful, non-rebellious sin and impurities, because we are humans and Yah cannot dwell in the midst of impurities. Okay, the macro order, the macro temple order of the Melchizedek priesthood is dealing with a completely different set of impurities and open rebelliousness, and such a high kedusha of a temple that you and I, there's no way we could officiate as priests. This is why Yeshua had to come in such a high order, because he is the only one that could remove the stain of yours and my sin from the heavenly temple. Nope, this is what Hebrews is talking about, chapter 7 and 8, which we're going to get to that immediately after we finish this chapter. It's not talking about we all become of this Melchizedek order anymore. It's not what it's talking about. You are to be responsible for the care of the sanctuary and the altar, so that the wrath will not fall on the Israelites again. When is he talking about again? When Korah rose up in his rebellion to say, I want to be high priest because of this, 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 and this, and your status is irrelevant. I don't care what you ascribe to that role. Isn't that basically what we're saying today? That the Levites are done away with. We don't need them anymore. That's not what the text says. Let's get to verse 8. No, wait, let's keep going. I myself, verse 6, have selected your fellow Levites from among the Israelites as a gift to you, as a grant. This is a legally binding chapter document to say that he's given them as a grant. Dedicated to Yah to do the work of the tent of meeting, but only you and your sons may serve at... Only you and your sons may serve as priests in connection with everything at the altar and inside the curtain. I am giving you the service of the priesthood as a gift. Anyone else who comes near the sanctuary must be put to death. That's witness number 2, again in chapters 18. Then Yah said to Aaron, I myself have put you in charge of the offerings presented to me. All the holy, the Kedusha offerings the Israelites give me, I give to you and your sons, as your portion and your regular share. You are to have the part of the most Kodesh offerings that is kept from the fire, from the gifts they bring me as most Kodesh offerings, whether grain or sin or guilt offerings. That part belongs to you and your sons. Eat it, and it goes on to talking about all the gifts that he has granted to the Levites for the service that they're doing in the rest of this chapter. And then jump down to verse 20. And Yah said to Aaron, you will have no inheritance, nor will you have any share among them. I am your share in your inheritance. This is where I was getting to before, ladies and gentlemen, that the Levites didn't get a piece of land. If all the firstborn Israelites were going to be a priesthood, I mean, it would be a dividing nightmare of trying to figure out who got what piece of land and who got this piece of land and so on and so forth. From now on, the Israelites must not go near the tent of meeting, or they will bear the consequences of their sin and will die. This is why I'm fearful when people are saying that the Levites are done away with. What are we going to do when there is a temple established? And I'm not even talking about if there's a temple this side of the millennial kingdom. I'm talking about when Yeshua is here and we all recognize that there is a temple going to be standing there. And I don't understand where people get these twisted mentality. It is the Levites who are to do the work at the tent of the meeting and bear the responsibility for the fences of it. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. It just goes on to keep reiterating the same thing, but to show that this chapter 18, verses 1 through 32, is a legally binding document to the deed of the grant that he has bestowed, that he has ascribed to Aaron and his sons and to the Levites. Okay, now I want to close this. We're already up against our hour here. I want to close this by going through chapter 7 and 8 of the book of Hebrews, because this is where we're going to start talking about Melchizedek, okay, and the confusion that lies in with that, okay. And if we understand that we're talking about two essential orders, ladies and gentlemen, two distinct orders, and understanding that they both have a specific role and a status attached to each order and a function, okay, then all of this stuff begins to make sense, and we don't have to be confused, and we don't have to wonder, well, what is all this craziness that is being taught? Let's go through the verses. Chapter 7 of the book of Hebrews, verse 1. This Melchizedek was king of Salem. Now, Melchizedek, king of Salem. Interesting thing about this, okay? In Genesis chapter 14 is where we see Melchizedek first mentioned. Melchizedek means king righteousness. We know we are serving an Elohim of righteousness, okay? Righteousness of all creation. So that actually means king righteousness. King of Salem, if you go through there and you look at the definition for that, it was actually shalem or shalom, a different variation of the word shalom, okay, which is linked to the older name of Jerusalem, which would be city of shalom or city of peace. Okay, well, what is shalom actually in the context of covenant? Shalom is the perfect state, okay, of maintaining a relationship between Yah and his creation. Okay, and who is the only one that can maintain that state of perfection of shalom in that relationship? Okay, and it's Yeshua. Why? Because he officiates from a higher order, and that's what I think that the Melchizedek, the king of Salem, is trying to show us, is showing that shalom can only be maintained in Jerusalem, where Yah's house is at, but it's also a microcosm of the macro temple in the heavenly realm. I hope this is making sense. But you have to look at the terms and in the Hebrew to try to define what is being said by just his title. Okay, so verse 1. This Melchizedek was king of Salem, and priest of God Most High. He met Abraham returning from the defeat of the kings and blessed him, and Abraham gave him a tenth of everything. First, it says right here in the text, first, his name means king of righteousness. Then also king of Salem means king of peace. Without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life, like the son of Elohim, he remains a priest forever. So this is meant to be a midrash, ladies and gentlemen, showing you that the shadow picture between this priest that Abraham met and who Yeshua is. Okay, he's pre-existent Even though he had a different role as being in his literal flesh of Yeshua, it's distinct from his role of being a high priest. Okay? Just think how great he was. Even the patriarch Abraham gave him a tenth of the plunder. Now the law requires the descendants of Levi who became priests to collect a tenth from the people. That is, their brothers, even though their brothers are descended from Abraham. This man, however, did not trace his descent from Levi. Yet he collected a tenth from Abraham and blessed him who had the promises. So does this negate Abraham and his role because he paid a tenth to this Melchizedek priest who was of a different order? No. It just shows the distinction between the roles. And without doubt, the lesser person is blessed by the greater. In the one case, the tenth collected by men who die, but in the other case, by him who is declared to be living. One might even say that Levi, who collects the tenth, paid the tenth through Abraham, because when Melchizedek met Abraham, Levi was still in the body of his ancestor. If perfection could have been... Now check this out. This is where we're going to see the distinct roles and status between the two priesthoods. If perfection could have been attained through the Levitical priesthood, for on the basis of it the law was given to the people, why was there still a need for another priest to come? It's because we're dealing with two distinct realms of impurity and purity, ladies and gentlemen. One in the order of Melchizedek, the macro temple in the heavenly realm, not in the order of Aaron, which is the Levitical priesthood, in the earthly tabernacle. For when there is a change of the priesthood, there must also be a change of the law. He of whom these things are said belonged to a different tribe, and no one from that tribe has ever served at that altar. It's talking about the altar where? In the macro temple, ladies and gentlemen. You have to see, this is what I'm talking about, is that the Bible is meant to be a temple text. The temple theme is embedded in the very core of everything in Scripture. For it is clear that our master descended from Judah, Yeshua. And in regard to that tribe, Moshe said nothing about priests. Why? Because it was given to the Levites. And what we have said is even more clear if another priest like Melchizedek appears, one who has become a priest not on the basis of a regulation as to his ancestry, but on the basis of the power of an indestructible life. For it is declared, you are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Because he has an indestructible life. This is why he is the only one who could officiate as the order of Melchizedek in the heavenly temple. It doesn't have anything to do with him officiating in the earthly temple. The former regulation is set aside because it was weak and useless. Why? Because the earthly tabernacle didn't deal with removing the stain of willful open rebellion as far as dealing with the issue of eternal life and redemption and all these type of areas. The only one that could do that, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, not only did it stain the earthly tabernacle, is when you and I commit a sin, is it actually stains the heavenly temple. Sin penetrates every minute crack in the universe, in all of the existence. Okay, this is we have to forget this 5 sense mentality of the kingdom in the temple of the, we only see it, we only feel it, we only hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are dealing with an Elohim outside the realm of time, outside of what we are bound by our skin, by the boundaries of this earth, by the boundaries of I don't even know how to put it, but when the fall happened in the garden, that created chaos throughout all the universe, throughout all creation. And this is what the officiating of the Melchizedek order has to deal with. The Levitical priesthood cannot deal with that. Because of his oath, Yeshua has become the guarantee of a better covenant. Why? Because he is the one who is the restorer of our faith. It has brought the redemption to the covenant, redemption to us, and can give us our inheritance of eternal life back. Now, there have been many of those priests since death prevented them from continuing in office. But because Yeshua lives forever, he has a permanent priesthood. Remember, the high priest dies, so when the high priest dies, we go to the descendants of Aaron. Therefore, he is able to save completely those who come to Elohim through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. Such a high priest meets our need, one who is holy, blameless, pure, set apart from sinners, exalted above the heavens. It's right there in the text. Unlike the other priest, he does not need to offer sacrifices day after day, first for his own sins, and then for the sins of the people. He sacrificed for their sins once for all when he offered himself. For the law appoints a high priest, as high priests, men who are weak, but the oath which came after the law appointed the Son, who is the firstborn son of Elohim, by the way, who has been made perfect forever. Chapter 8, verse... See, I'm yelling. I'm losing my voice. The point of what we are saying is this. We do have such a high priest who sat down at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven. So he sat down after he got done officiating on yours and my behalf, because he is perfect and he does not die. And he's brought us eternal life. So he sits down after officiating once at the right at the right hand of the Father in the throne, in the macro temple in the heavenly realm. Different order than the earthly order. Who sat down at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven, and who serves in the sanctuary, the true tabernacle, set up by the master, not by man. Every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and sacrifices, and so it was necessary for this one also to have something to offer. If he were on earth, he would not be a priest. For there are already men who offer gifts prescribed by the law. What is that saying? He would not be a priest. Why? Because he could not be a priest according to the Levitical order. That was given to the Levites. It was given to Aaron and his descendants. Yeshua was not a descendant of Aaron. Okay? Already men who offer the gifts prescribed by that law, prescribed by that order, they serve at a sanctuary that is a copy and a shadow of what is in heaven. This is why Moshe was warned when he was about to build the tabernacle, see to it that you make everything according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. But the ministry Yeshua has received is as superior to theirs as the covenant of which he is mediator, to which he is broker. To which he is mediator is superior to the old one, and it is founded on better promises. Why better promises? Because this order, this Melchizedek order, the macro temple in the heavenly realm, gives us eternal life. It fulfills the promises that Yah gave to Abraham and to his seed, who joined to the seed of the promise of walking in the ways of Yah. For if there had been nothing wrong with the first covenant, it's talking about the first order of the priesthood, no place would have been sought for another, but Elohim found fault with the people and said, the time is coming, declares the Master, when I will make a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their forefathers when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they did not remain faithful to my covenant. It's talking about how much open rebellion that they had committed, that not only stained the earthly realm, ladies and gentlemen, but it stained the altar in the macro temple, and turned away from them, declares Yah. This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after that time, declares the Master. I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. I will be like their Elohim, and they will be my people. No longer will a man teach his neighbor, or a man his brother, saying, know the Master, because they will all know me. They will all be loyal to me. Remember, know is to be loyal. From the least of them to the greatest, for I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. By calling this covenant renewed, he has made the first one obsolete, and what is obsolete and aging will soon disappear. It's talking about the distinction between the orders of the priesthood, ladies and gentlemen, saying that we have been restored. This does not make us all Melchizedek priests. So my main goal today was to show you that there are two essential orders pertaining to serving in the temple. And you and I do not fall into either one of those unless we are a Levite. And I'm saying that because none of us are Melchizedek priests. Okay? Totally distinct role in the heavenly realm than the earthly realm. So I pray that this made sense. I pray that you got enough evidence from the verses that we read, and go back and study this stuff and verify it, ladies and gentlemen. We have to find ourselves approved and to make sure that we are walking according to what Yah has declared is an honorable status. You know, and that's no matter what role we are playing. And this goes for teachers, ladies and gentlemen. We do not understand the severity of what we say, what we teach. And when it goes against the grain of what Yah's word says, we're opening the door for destruction. Okay, for literal destruction. So please, please study things out instead of just believing whatever you hear. Verify the information, no matter who says it. It doesn't matter who teaches it. Verify the information. So thanks for taking time with me this week. I really appreciate the opportunity to at least talk about this and look at it from its proper perspective. You know, and you're going to see this is all prevalent all throughout the book of Numbers, okay? The Levites have a specific role that Yah has granted to them, and we cannot take that away. So, Shabbat Shalom. Thanks again, and I hope you all have a great week. Shalom.